Imagine sitting in a silent room, face to face with someone who can see through you in seconds, not because he's guessing, but because he understands you better than you understand yourself. Now imagine that this person isn't just intelligent. He's dangerous, not in the obvious way, not loud, not impulsive, but controlled, precise, the kind of mind that doesn't react. It calculates. And somehow, he's the only one who can help you catch a killer. That's where this story begins. Not with violence, not with chaos, but with a conversation. A young trainee is called into a room she doesn't belong in yet. She's still learning, still proving herself, still trying to be taken seriously in a world that constantly evaluates her every move. Every word she says feels like it matters more than it should. She's given a task that sounds simple on paper. Interview a prisoner. Ask the right questions. Bring back something useful. But the tone in the room tells a different story. This isn't routine. This isn't safe. And the man she's about to meet is not someone you interview. He's someone you survive. Before she even gets close to him, she has to walk through layers of security, each door heavier than the last, each metallic sound echoing longer than it should. The environment itself feels like a warning. The deeper she goes, the more isolated everything becomes. The noise fades, the space tightens, the air feels different, until finally, she arrives. A corridor lined with cells, men watching her, some curious, some hostile, some silent in a way that feels worse than noise. Their eyes follow her as she walks past, measuring her, judging her, testing her without saying a word. It's the kind of attention that makes every step feel heavier. One of them whispers something under his breath. Another lets out a low laugh. She keeps walking, focused, disciplined, but fully aware that she doesn't belong here. And at the very end, he doesn't move like the others. He doesn't react. He doesn't try to get her attention. He's just there, standing, waiting, calm, perfectly still, like he knew she was coming long before she arrived. They are separated by glass, thick, reinforced, a barrier that suggests safety. But nothing about this feels safe. She introduces herself, her voice steady, but controlled in a way that reveals effort. She's trying to establish authority, trying to hold ground, but control is already gone because he doesn't respond the way normal people do. He doesn't acknowledge her title. He doesn't respect the structure of the interaction. Instead, he observes, closely, carefully. Every detail matters to him. The way she stands, the way she holds eye contact, the slight tension in her shoulders, the rhythm of her breathing. And then, without raising his voice, he begins, not with answers, with questions, but not the kind she prepared for. He doesn't ask about the case. He asks about her background, her accent, where she comes from, details she never mentioned, details she never offered. And suddenly, the dynamic shifts. This isn't her leading the conversation. It's him. He starts describing her, not guessing, analyzing, breaking her down in real time, her upbringing, her insecurities, her need to prove herself. Things that feel uncomfortably accurate, too accurate. And for the first time, she hesitates, just slightly. But he notices, because that's what he does. He notices everything. And in that moment, something becomes very clear. This isn't an interview. It's a dissection, and she's the subject. But she doesn't leave, because she can't. There's too much at stake. Outside those walls, the situation is getting worse. Women are disappearing. Bodies are being found. And whoever is responsible is not making mistakes. No witnesses. No clear pattern. No identity. Just fear and time running out. The people in charge are losing control. And that's why she's here. Because the only person who might understand a mind like this is someone who has won. So she stays, even though every instinct tells her this is a mistake. Because sometimes the only way to understand darkness is to step into it. And that's exactly what she's doing. One question at a time, one answer at a time. But nothing comes easily because he doesn't give anything for free. He makes that clear very quickly. If she wants insight, she has to give something in return. Not money, not favors. something more valuable. Truth, personal truth. He wants to know who she really is, not the version she presents, the version she hides. And at first, she resists. She keeps things professional, structured, focused on the case. But that approach doesn't work with someone like him, because structure is meaningless to someone who operates outside of it. Eventually, she gives in, just a small piece, a controlled detail, something from her past, something she believes is safe to share. And for a moment, it feels like progress, like she's gaining something. But she's not, because the moment he gets that information, everything changes. Now he has a way in, a thread to pull, and he pulls it slowly, carefully, expanding it, connecting it, turning one detail into a full psychological profile. And the deeper he goes, the more exposed she becomes. At the same time, the investigation begins to evolve. Patterns start to appear, subtle at first, then clearer. The killer isn't acting randomly. There's intention behind every move. Selection, preparation, execution. This is not chaos. This is design. And with every conversation, the man behind the glass gives her fragments. Never full answers, never direct guidance. Just enough to redirect her thinking, to force her to see what she wasn't seeing before. Because for him, this isn't about helping. It's about control. It's about influence. It's about watching someone learn, while knowing you're the one shaping that process. And the more she learns, the more dangerous this becomes. Because now she's not just chasing a killer. She's starting to think like one. And once that shift happens, there's no going back to who you were before. As she stands there, holding her composure, there's a subtle shift in the atmosphere that's hard to explain. It's not something she sees. It's something she feels. A quiet pressure, like being watched. Not just physically, but mentally, as if every thought she has is being anticipated before it even fully forms. The silence between them starts to feel heavier, longer, more deliberate. And that's when she realizes something even more unsettling. He's not rushing. He's not pushing. Because he doesn't need to. He knows exactly what the situation is doing to her. The uncertainty, the discomfort, the slow erosion of control. For him, this isn't just a conversation. It's observation in its purest form. And the more time she spends in front of him, the clearer it becomes. He's not just analyzing her behavior. He's mapping her, understanding how she reacts under pressure, how she processes fear, how she hides it. And that realization changes everything. Because now, every word she says matters. Every pause matters. Every reaction is data. Outside the prison walls, the case is getting worse. Another body is found. Same pattern, same precision. The victim is a woman, young, physically similar to the others. And once again, no clear evidence pointing to a suspect. But there is something new, something small, something easy to overlook. Inside the throat of the victim, investigators find an unusual object, not random, not natural. Something placed there intentionally, a signature, a message, and suddenly the case shifts. This isn't just a killer trying to hide. This is someone who wants to be understood, but only by the right mind. The trainee is brought in again, this time not just to observe, but to contribute, because now she has something no one else has. Access to the one mind that might recognize this pattern. She returns to the prison. Same corridor, same silence, same eyes watching her pass. But this time, something feels different, not safer, worse, because now she knows what she's walking into, and she knows what it costs. When she reaches him, he's already aware. He always is. Before she even speaks, there's a subtle change in his expression. Not surprise, recognition, as if he's been expecting this exact moment. She presents the new detail, carefully, measured, trying not to give him more than necessary. But again, that doesn't matter, because he doesn't just listen. He interprets. He studies not just the information, but how she delivers it. And then, slowly he smiles, not out of amusement, out of understanding. He knows exactly what this means. But instead of giving her a direct answer, He redirects. He gives her something incomplete, a hint, a metaphor, something that forces her to think instead of react. Because for him, teaching is more interesting than telling. He describes a killer not as a monster, but as someone transforming, someone evolving, someone trying to become something else. And that idea changes everything. Because now the investigation isn't about what the killer is doing. It's about why. Back outside, the team begins to reevaluate everything. Victim profiles, locations, patterns that didn't make sense before, now start to align. The killer isn't choosing randomly. There's intention behind every target, every action, every detail. And the more they look, the clearer it becomes. This is someone who sees people as material, not as individuals, but as components, parts of something bigger. Meanwhile, the conversations continue, and with each visit, the dynamic becomes more complex. He doesn't just ask for information anymore. He demands deeper truths, more personal, more vulnerable, and she gives them, not all at once, not easily, but enough, because she knows time is running out, and each piece of herself she reveals brings her closer to understanding the mind she's chasing, but also closer to losing control, because the more he learns about her, the more influence he has. At one point, he stops the conversation entirely. Silence, long, uncomfortable, deliberate, and then he asks something simple, a question that feels unrelated, but isn't. A question about fear, not general fear. Her fear, the kind that stays with you, the kind that doesn't go away. And for a moment, she hesitates, because this isn't about the case anymore. This is about her. But she answers, quietly, carefully, and that answer changes the tone completely, because now he understands her on a deeper level, not just as an investigator, but as a person. And that's exactly what he wanted. At the same time, the killer strikes again. Another abduction. But this time, the victim is different. She's connected, important. Her disappearance doesn't just create fear. It creates pressure, political pressure, media pressure. Now the entire system is watching. The investigation is no longer just about solving a case. It's about preventing a public disaster. Resources are increased. Leads are followed faster. Decisions are made under pressure. And that's when mistakes start to happen. Because urgency changes behavior. It forces action. Even when action isn't fully understood, the trainee begins to notice something others don't. The pattern isn't just about the victims. It's about timing, sequence, progression. The killer is building towards something, not just repeating behavior, advancing it. And the more she thinks about what the man behind the glass said, the clearer it becomes. Transformation. That's the key. The killer isn't satisfied with who he is. He's trying to become something else. And everything he's doing is part of that process. This realization opens a new direction, a different way of thinking, less about evidence, more about identity. Who would do this? Not just physically, psychologically. What kind of person needs to change themselves so completely that they would do something like this? And that question leads to something unexpected, a connection to past cases, fragments of identity, pieces of a life that don't fit together cleanly, but they fit enough. And slowly, a profile begins to form. Not complete, not perfect, but close. Closer than anyone has been. But time is running out. The kidnapped victim is still alive. For now. And everyone knows it won't stay that way for long. The pressure builds. Decisions become faster, more aggressive. And once again, the trainee returns to the one place that has given her answers. Back to the glass. Back to him. But this time, the dynamic shifts again. Because now he has something new. Leverage. He knows how desperate the situation is. He knows how much they need him. And he uses it. Not loudly. Not forcefully. But precisely. He negotiates. Not for freedom. Not yet. For control. For movement. For opportunity. And the people in charge agree because they have no choice. But the trainee sees something others don't. This isn't just cooperation. This is positioning. He's not just helping. He's preparing. And whatever he's preparing for, it's bigger than the case. Somewhere far from the investigation, in a place no one is looking, the killer is working, carefully, patiently. There is no rush in his movements. Everything he does follows a process, a ritual. The environment around him is controlled, isolated, silent, the kind of place where no one would hear anything, even if they tried. The victim is still alive, but barely, trapped, confused, terrified. She doesn't understand what is happening to her, and that's exactly how he wants it, because for him, this isn't just about killing, it's about becoming. He studies her the same way the man behind the glass studies the trainee, observing behavior, testing reactions, understanding fear. But unlike the man in the cell, this one acts. He prepares. He measures. He waits for the right moment, because whatever he is building isn't finished yet. And that's the most dangerous part, because unfinished intentions are unpredictable. Back in the investigation, none of this is visible. They see the results, but not the process. They understand the pattern, but not the purpose, except for one person, because the trainee is starting to see it. Not clearly, not completely, but enough to feel it. And that feeling tells her something important. This isn't just a race against time. It's a race against transformation. And they're already behind. The pressure reaches a breaking point. The investigation is no longer moving forward at control pace. It's accelerating. Too fast. Leads are being followed without full verification. Decisions are made based on urgency, not certainty. And that's exactly the kind of environment where mistakes happen. The kidnapped victim becomes the center of everything. Her identity changes the weight of the case. This is no longer just another disappearance. This is now a situation that demands immediate results. Every second matters. Every delay feels like failure. And under that pressure, the system starts to crack. The trainee sees it happening. Small details at first. Miscommunication. Rushed conclusions. People focusing on being right instead of being accurate. And in the middle of all this chaos, there's still one constant. The man behind the glass. But now, he's no longer just observing. He's moving, not physically, but strategically. He knows exactly how much pressure is building outside. He knows how desperate they become. And now he decides to act. When the trainee returns to him, the atmosphere is different. There's no slow build-up this time. No careful testing. He's already in control. He makes an offer. But it's not simple. And it's not clean. He will help. Fully. Directly. But only under one condition. He wants to be moved. Out of his current cell. Into a different environment. A place with less restriction. More access. More visibility. To the people in charge, this is dangerous. To the trainee, it's something worse. It's calculated. She sees it immediately. This isn't cooperation. This is strategy. But they are running out of time. And when time disappears, caution follows. The deal is accepted. And just like that, everything changes. The moment he leaves his original cell, the balance shifts. Because that cell wasn't just a prison. It was containment. Now, he's in a space with variables, movement, opportunity. And for someone like him, that's all he needs. As he is transported, the tension is almost silent. No resistance. No struggle. Just calm observation. He watches everything. Guards, procedures, timings, small details that most people would ignore. But for him, nothing is small. Everything is information. And information is control. Meanwhile, the investigation believes it is getting closer. A suspect is identified. A location is tracked. A plan is formed. It feels like progress. Fast progress. Too fast. Because when something comes together that quickly, it's usually incomplete. But pressure doesn't allow doubt. Action is taken. A tactical team is deployed. The location is surrounded. Everything is executed with precision. Or at least, it looks that way. Inside, the suspect is confronted. The operation unfolds exactly as planned. Except for one thing. It's the wrong person. The realization hits slowly. Then, all at once, the pattern doesn't match. The behavior doesn't align. The details feel forced. And in that moment, everything collapses. Because while resources were focused on the wrong target, the real killer is still out there, still moving, still preparing. Back with the trainee, the weight of that mistake becomes clear. She sees what others missed: the timing, the misdirection, the illusion of progress. And suddenly, she understands something critical. They were never ahead. They were being guided, not by the killer, but by the one who understands them best. The man they trusted for insight has been controlling the flow of information, not lying, but directing, shaping the investigation in subtle ways. And now, she realizes something even more dangerous. He didn't just help them, he positioned himself. Everything he asked for, every condition, every movement, it wasn't about the case. It was about access. Because now, he's no longer contained the same way. And that realization comes too late. Because while the investigation deals with failure, he makes his move. It happens fast, precise, violent, but controlled, not chaos. Execution. Guards are overpowered. The environment shifts instantly from controlled security to complete vulnerability. And in the middle of it all, he remains calm, focused, like everything is happening exactly as expected, because it is. This was never improvisation. This was planning, every second of it. And now, he's gone, vanished, without panic, without noise, without leaving behind anything obvious, just absence. And that absence is louder than anything else, because now there are two threats, the one they've been chasing and the one they just lost. The trainee understands the full weight of the situation. This was never just about catching a killer. It was about engaging with a mind that operates on a completely different level. And now, that mind is free, but there's no time to process that, because the original threat is still active. The kidnapped victim is still alive, somewhere, waiting, running out of time. And now, the responsibility shifts. Fully, completely. There are no more shortcuts, no more external guidance, no more controlled conversations behind glass. Now, it's just her instincts, her understanding, everything she's learned, and everything she's been through. She goes back through every detail, every conversation, every hint, every word that seemed insignificant at the time. And slowly, something starts to form, a connection, not obvious, not direct, but enough to point somewhere real. And for the first time, she moves without waiting for approval, because now she understands something the others don't. This isn't about procedure anymore. It's about timing. And timing is almost gone. What makes it worse is how clean everything feels. There is no panic in his movements, no hesitation, no wasted motion. Every action connects to the next like it was rehearsed over and over again, because it was. The people around him react emotionally, confused, unprepared, trying to understand what is happening instead of stopping it. And that delay is everything he needs. Within minutes, the situation is no longer under control. What was supposed to be a secure environment turns into uncertainty. Signals are missed, orders overlap, and in that confusion, he disappears, not running, not rushing, just moving forward, without resistance. Back in the investigation, the consequences start to unfold. The failure hits harder than expected, not just because they lost him, but because they realized they were never truly in control. They were reacting, always reacting, and now they are behind, far behind. The trainee feels that shift immediately, not as fear, but as clarity, because for the first time, everything connects. The manipulation, the timing, the subtle redirections. It wasn't chaos. It was design. And that realization forces her into a different mindset. No more waiting. No more second guessing. No more relying on a system that is already collapsing under pressure. Now it's instinct. Now it's understanding. Now it's personal. Because somewhere out there, the real killer is finishing what he started. And this time, there will be no second chance. The world outside feels quieter now, but it's not calm. It's the kind of silence that comes after something breaks. The investigation has lost control. The system has been exposed. And the only thing that still matters is time. Because somewhere, in a place no one has found yet, the victim is still alive, barely, holding on, waiting for something that may never come. And now, everything depends on one person, the trainee. No backup plan, no second chance, just instinct. She goes back through everything, every conversation, every word, every moment that didn't make sense at the time. And now, for the first time, it does. Not clearly, not perfectly, but enough to move. She isolates one detail, something small, something that didn't feel important before, a name, a connection, a past identity. And suddenly, the profile sharpens, the pieces align, the pattern completes. This isn't just about victims anymore. It's about identity, transformation, the need to become something else. And that need leaves traces, not physical ones, psychological ones, behavioral ones. She follows that thread, alone, no announcement, no approval, because waiting now would mean failure. And she knows it. The location she arrives at feels ordinary, too ordinary, quiet, still, the kind of place that doesn't attract attention. And that's exactly why it works, because no one is looking there. At first, nothing seems wrong, no signs of struggle, no obvious danger, just a normal house, a normal door, a normal moment, until it isn't. She knocks, and when the door opens, something feels off. Not enough to confirm, but enough to stay alert. The man standing there appears normal, calm, polite, but there's something underneath, something controlled, something hidden. They speak briefly, casually, but every second matters. Every detail matters. The way he looks at her, the way he responds, the way he moves. And then it happens. Recognition, not from him, from her. A small detail clicks. A behavior, a reaction, something that doesn't match. And in that instant, everything changes. She realizes who he is, but it's already too late. The door closes, the tone shifts, and the environment transforms instantly. What looked normal seconds ago now feels like a trap, because it is. She is inside, alone, with him. No backup, no support, no time. The situation flips completely. She is no longer investigating. She is surviving. Inside the house, the space feels different, tighter, darker, controlled. He knows every corner, every exit, every shadow. She doesn't, and that gives him the advantage. He moves with confidence, not rushed, not desperate, but certain, because this is his environment, his world, his design. The lights go out, total darkness, silence. Now the rules change again. He can see. She can't. He moves slowly, watching, studying, enjoying the control. For him, this is a final step, not just escape, completion. And for her, this is the moment everything comes down to. Every conversation, every lesson, every piece of understanding she gained. This is where it all matters. Because now, she has to think like him, not react, not panic, but calculate. She listens carefully. Every sound becomes information. Every movement becomes a signal. Her breathing slows. Her focus sharpens. And in that darkness, the balance begins to shift. Not physically, mentally, because while he sees her, he underestimates her. He believes he is still in control. And that assumption is his weakness. There's a moment, a small one, almost invisible, but critical, a sound, a movement, a mistake, and she reacts, not with hesitation, not with fear, but with precision. A single shot breaks the silence, then another, and then nothing, silence again. But this time it's different. He's gone. The threat is over. The control is broken. And just like that, it ends. The victim is found, alive, shaken, but alive. The case is finally closed. The system regains its structure. The chaos stops. But something about this doesn't feel like victory. Because while one threat is gone, the other one is still out there, free, watching, thinking, waiting, and that realization lingers. Because in the end, the most dangerous part of the story was never the killer being chased. It was the one who understood everything, the one who never rushed, never panicked, never lost control. He didn't need violence to dominate. He used knowledge, insight, precision, and even from a cage, he shaped outcomes. That's what makes him unforgettable. Not what he did, but how he thought. Because true power isn't force. It's understanding. It's knowing exactly how people work and using that knowledge without hesitation. And somewhere far from all of this, he's still out there, moving forward, calm, unseen, and still completely in control. This is The Silence of the Lambs